they're saying that this is a time to remember God and not to claim our equality.
I remember God by reinforcing my equality. God made me equal, man took that away from me.
If you're born in that culture where you're seeing girls are not being sent to school but boys are, that the boys get something that's better quality than the girls, it's already there in the layers. And there's a comment that came in from somebody, I don't want to say their name because I don't agree with what they've said. They're saying that this is a time to remember God and not to claim our equality. And for me, that's what the problem is. These people are the problem. So what would you say to that?
I say I remember God by reinforcing my equality. God made me equal, man took that away from me. So I'm just taking what's my God-given right and making sure that people do the same. So this is a time to remember God, but that doesn't mean that God also, I'm not a Sikh scholar, so I can't speak to Sikhi, and my ideas of what Waheguru says to me are my ideas. I'm not going to try and say that to everyone else, but in Sikhi, God also says you have to live in the community. You can't just go into the jungle, because everybody can find God in the jungle. You have to live in the community and you have to do seva, and this is my seva. This is my seva for my community. So I do my Simran, and Pink Ladoo is my seva, and that's why I don't take money for it. So I think it's absurd to say that this isn't this somehow doesn't correlate with religion, because I don't really understand how that works. I
agree. I totally agree. But I think it's important to know that these are some of the voices that exist out there as well, where people don't see it important, or in their mind, they think that equality already exists. And, we're just a bunch of women who are making loads of noise about nothing, right? But the fact is, Sikhi was formed on equality. Those were the founding points from Guru Nanak, that to lift all humans up, regardless of gender, caste, creed, color, none of that stuff. Like, we were brought to the same platform, and you're right, it's man that took that away. And right now, if those men are not educating themselves about it or respecting the voice that we're sharing now, and even Pink Ladoo and other organizations too, then they become part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I would only say this here because this is this is a Sikh platform, so this is where we talk about Sikhi. And otherwise, I don't share any religious messages on Pink Ladoo. I try and keep Pink Ladoo secular, so we don't do any sort of religious conversation on there. But I think a big part of Sikhi is living in the community, living in your sangat, living in your world. You don't achieve Sikhi by living in the jungle. So you have to live in this community. You have to solve the problems that exist in this community. You have to work with your neighbor and work with your community and work with everybody around you to make a better community. So I think this idea that we should all just lock our doors and sit inside and do Simran, that doesn't work either. Like, that's not Sikhi either, because it's not about it's the individual experience, but it's also the collective experience. And that's why there's a specific emphasis on not going into the jungle and just doing. Anybody can find God in the jungle, but it's a challenge to find God in the real world, right? Like, so I completely just disagree with that idea that doing work like this is somehow conflicting with religion. I don't agree.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it's about opening our minds, taking away the ego, and just looking into that reality of what actually happens in the world versus what we think happens in the world. And for all the men out there that are listening, these are, two Sikh women in front of you right now who are talking to this subject, because this is happening, this is real. And that's why we need Pink Ladoo to help us to understand that from inception, from the birth of a daughter coming into the world, you can change her whole destiny by empowering her and making her feel equal, or you can rob her of that by making her feel like she's not worth anything. And
people also say funny things like, in Sikhi it shouldn't be like this. Like, you have to understand that, like, religion, is one part of how people live.
Mhm.
As a collective, religion informs how we live, culture informs how we live, our surroundings inform how we live. So just because our religion is perfect doesn't mean our culture is, right? So when people start saying that, like, "Edda nahi hona," yes, I agree, "Edda nahi hona chahiye." Even without religion, it shouldn't be like this. But that doesn't mean that it's not happening. So how are we going to deal with it? Right? Like, just
Mhm.
constantly repeating over and over again, "Idda nahi hona chahiye, idda nahi hona chahiye," it doesn't fix anything. So you have to actively go out there and create new traditions that value girls and, like, dismantle sexist customs that, elevate boys. So just sitting there and saying, "Idda nahi hona chahiye," nahi hona chahiye, that doesn't change anything. You have
Absolutely.
you have to get people to do something different on the ground and
Mhm.
change their behavior. And that the whole point of Pink Ladoo is, people are changing their behavior slowly, because every time a family goes to a sweet shop to get an order of Pink Ladoo for their girls, they're changing their behavior, right? That is a massive behavioral leap that they've made. And psychologically, that's really, really powerful. It's very, very profound. And it's something that they will always remember. And that's why I think, these things, they don't just exist in a bubble. Like, you have to live in dunyadari and try and coordinate around it.